This is Mr. Menifee, and welcome to Lesson 1 for Upward Bound. For MCC Upward Bound Food Science this summer. This is the first of 3 lessons that you will be doing with me today. You're going to be doing Madeleines made easy or simple Madeleines. This is a traditional French dessert, and let's go ahead and start with our setup. Hopefully you've already watched the mise en place video, and let's talk about mise en place this morning. You need to go ahead and have your muffin tins. You need to have your mixing bowl, your spatula, your sifter. You need to have your quarter cup, your full cup. You need to have your half teaspoon, and you need to have your 1 tablespoon. In addition, you need your whisk. This is going to be your primary mixing tool. You need your butter, vanilla, salt, flour, sugar, eggs. You also need a couple bowls. You've got 4 eggs this morning, and you're going to need a couple bowls. Why a couple bowls? Because this is what is going to be necessary for some of the individual prep items. It helps keep stuff organized because you will use the cup a couple different times. So, also go ahead and get yourself a couple spoons and a plate, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first off, we're gonna start with our eggs. You're gonna take 4 eggs, you're gonna crack them, and you're gonna put them in your mixing bowl. Now, as everyone in this group has been given a plastic mixing bowl, and you're just gonna crack and put them in. Please make sure, guys, you're not getting any bits of eggshell into your bowl, okay? Now, once your eggs are done, we're gonna move on to the next item. But as you can see, I have 4 eggs in here. And now it's time to eat my daily bag of sugar. No, not really. I'm not gonna eat a bag of sugar. That's how you end up with like diabetes. But, you know, it's bad. All right, so we're gonna take our sugar and we're just gonna basically, you don't have to do it this way. I'm trying to minimize the mess because I'm kind of messy naturally. So I am just spooning my cup of sugar, spooning it in, and you're gonna do something similar with the flour, okay? And so we're just spooning it in. We're gonna wait until we're entirely on the top and level. We're almost there. Okay, a little drop more. All right, level it off. I've got a plate underneath me so it's not going on the table, because then my wife, who is my cameraman, would not be happy with me. So, and just gonna go ahead and pour it in. All right, you've just got it poured in, and now we're going to mix it up in just a second. All right, so here we got our whisk, and this is what we're using. And we're gonna just kind of get it blended first, nice and slow, because we don't want sugar flying out. And just a second ago, I had a bunch of sugar flying out, which annoys me to no end. And then you're just gonna use a little wrist motion here. And if you don't know how to use your whisk, I'll try and post a video that shows you how to use your whisk. And you're just gonna blend it. And you're gonna do this for about 60 seconds. Until you got a nice kind of smooth, consistent texture. All right, so next we're going to measure out our salt and our vanilla. First off, we're using the half teaspoon for salt, and you're just going to go ahead and pour it in. And like I said, this is a half teaspoon. I'm going to level it off. You use a knife or use your finger. Make sure your finger is clean, and we're just going to go ahead and add it to there. Okay, and now let's go ahead and do the vanilla. You're wondering why I've got in the bowl. Basically, I just don't want to make a mess, and so any excess is going into the bowl. Do not add this to the recipe. This is just excess. Okay, also, don't measure over your mixing bowl. This is a bad idea. Measure over something else. If something spills, next thing you know, instead of a teaspoon of salt, you now have like 3 cups of salt. So with the vanilla, we're going to measure the vanilla over the bowl here. So here's our imitation vanilla. Imitation vanilla works pretty well in most baked ingredients. For our budget purposes, it works really well. So we're going to measure 2 full tablespoons of vanilla. So here is number 1. And here is number 2. Okay, and we're going to mix that together again. All right, and so we're just mixing our vanilla and our sugar and our eggs and our salt together. Periodically scrape the bowl. And you want to get kind of this consistent kind of teacher khaki pant color is what we're going for.
Yep.
Yeah, if it matches the color of your dad or your uncle's khaki pants, then it's probably the right consistency. All right, let's move on. All right, so we're gonna set our mixing bowl aside for a minute, and we're gonna go ahead and portion out our butter and our flour. There is a couple things you need to be aware of with your butter. I'm actually gonna pre-melt the butter. It does call for 1.25 cups. Okay, 1.25 cups is technically 3.5 sticks of solid butter, but we're not using solid butter, we're using melted butter, and that's gonna be a big difference. The flour, we are going to sift this before adding because we want to add a lighter texture to it. And so we're going to take you through both those techniques right now. Okay, so with butter, you got to understand that solid butter is going to be a different amount than melted butter. So we're going to start with 2 sticks, and you want to get a bowl or a measuring cup, a glass measuring cup of some sort. Don't do this in plastic. Don't do this in metal because you're sticking it in your microwave. And we're going to do it in 30-second increments until we get the right consistency we want. The other day, I set it for 3 minutes at the lowest temperature in the microwave thinking, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. No, and my microwave still smells a little bit like butter that I've overcooked at this point. So, and it also spilled over and bubbled, and I didn't even realize butter could do that at so low temperatures, but it did. So, let's be careful. 30 seconds at a time, low temperature, until it gets the right consistency we want. This is not yet melted enough, but you can see it's starting to get a little melty. So let's pop it back in again. Okay, so this is almost there. We're going to give it another 15 seconds because I still see 1 lump, and then we'll be done. So you are going to have to use 2.5 sticks of butter for this to get your proper measurement. We had kind of misjudged this earlier, and so that's why we're adding our other 1/2 stick. Okay, so here's our melted butter. We're going to double check the measurement. Now we need it to cool down a little bit right now because if we poured it into the mixture right now, it would start cooking the eggs, and your eggs would literally cook with sugar. And when that sounds delicious, it's really not. Okay, so we're going to let this cool, and we're going to go ahead and prep our flour at this point. And so we got our all-purpose flour. I want you to go ahead and get your cup, and I want you to get your sifter, and we're gonna go ahead and get this started. Portion out our flour first. Like I said, like you watched one of the other videos, we're just gonna go ahead and put spoons of flour in here. We don't want to pack it down because we are gonna be sifting this in just a second. And I'm making a bit of a mess. Okay, that's why I got that little bowl over it. So here is cup 1 of the flour. And we pour the flour back in the bowl. And so let's go ahead and pour this, get this batch in here. Okay, let's smooth it off. Okay, and this excess flour on the plate is going to go back into the bag. And this is going to go here, and then we're going to sift this. Okay, so with your flour, we are going to use this again for the next 2 weeks worth of recipes. So go ahead and seal it up. And if you got saran wrap or a Ziploc bag, giant Ziploc bag you can put it into, go ahead and do that. And just set it in a nice, cool, dry place. And just make sure it's properly sealed. Okay, so we're gone back to our batter. Okay, we're going to go and stir it until it gets back to that nice consistency where you're not seeing any streaks in it. And we're going to go and start adding our flour. Now, we already have 2 cups, and so we're just going to use a spoonful at a time, and we're going to basically just tap it and sift. Tap and sift, tap and sift. And you want to do this because this is going to create a lighter texture overall, and that's something we want with this. And every time you do this, just give it a couple quick stirs. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can have streaks in it at this point, and we're just going to go ahead and add some more. And this is going to take you a few minutes, but it is going to give you a superior texture and crumb when you get to the finished product. So we've been slowly adding flour to this, and you don't ever want to dump it all in at once. Okay? Do it in small portions, and every time you do it, you don't want to overmix. Overmixing will cause just as many problems, so you just kind of blend it in nicely, slowly, get it in there. Also, this is going to remove any potential hard lumps of flour, which is pretty uncommon, but let's just be on the safe side anyway. Okay, and now we're going to add portions of butter at a time. So we've already confirmed that we do have the right amount, so 2.5 sticks will get you your right amount. You want to melt it in a glass container, or not plastic, not metal, okay? And I'm just going to add a portion of butter here. And I'm just going to go ahead and blend this in, okay? You want to blend it until it is the butter has kind of incorporated into the mix. If you see big shiny glumps, give it a little more spin. All right. So adding our butter, our second portion of it. And yes, this is a lot of butter. And yes, this is this is not something you want to eat on a daily basis kind of thing. I'm doing this right now for breakfast for my kids because I love my kids. And also, this is the best way to make this work in our household. All right, so your batter is consistent throughout. You do not want to beat this thing like a rented mule. Just kind of gradually incorporate everything together. At this point, we're going to... The other thing that we've actually forgot to mention is we're going to stick this batter in the fridge and we're going to give it 30 minutes to kind of set before we go ahead and spoon it in. So, please ignore my dirty stove and let's go ahead and set our temperature. Our bake temperature is going to be 375, and you need it to preheat until it hits 375. Now, my oven has a little timer. It says ding when it hits that temperature. Yours may not. The general rule is give it about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the temperature of your oven, and wait for it to preheat to 375. Do not set this item in when it's not at the right temperature. Okay. All right, while your dough's finished up cooling, we're gonna go and prep our pans. Just gonna spray them with a little non-stick spray. All right, your dough is going to be almost like cookie dough thickness now, and that's what we want. So we're just gonna take a big spoonful. We're gonna put it in each one of these, okay?
Well, leave some room because it's going to rise.
Yeah, we need to leave some room because it's going to rise. We're going to try and get it all in there. You don't want to fill them ever to the top. Filling them to the top is a guarantee you're going to have overflow into your oven, and that is not something we want. Don't want to leave any drips on the pan, so take a wet paper towel and clean up the edges. Okay?
All of that will burn if you leave it on.
Yeah, it will burn if you leave it on. Okay, now these are filled between about half to three quarters full, and we're going to go ahead and stick them in the oven in just a second. All right, so I've got all mine filled up. Now you've got enough for about 2 batches. I've got extra muffins in at the house, so I'm going to fill that up. And we're going to go ahead and stick these all in the oven.
Set a timer for 15 minutes.
We're going to set it for about 15 minutes. We may have to adjust that a little bit depending on doneness. And now your Madeleines, they are done. Okay, that's my bad French. Okay, so you should check them, and they should be cooked throughout. And you can see it's got a nice kind of texture, and it's light. Oh my word, that's good. And now we're going to gild the lily in a second, but they all should be done done throughout, and they're going to be.
Do you let them cool in the pan, or
Yeah,
you put them out?
you want to cool them for about 5 minutes. Thanks, Jer. You want to cool for about 5 minutes, and then pop them out, and then we're going to dust them with powdered sugar. Now, if you're going to notice here, I've got my Madeleines came out 2 different ways. They got these nice little puffy tops, but one is browner on the bottom, and the other is not. The browner is going to taste a little bit better. This is because I cooked it in a slightly darker pan. Yours is going to kind of come out a little blonde looking, and that's okay. Just remember to grease the pan. Remember to spray down the pan with the spray oil, and also make sure you check them. Like I said, 15 minutes is as long as you're not filling past the half or 3/4 line. 15 minutes is going to be plenty, but always double check them. Stick a fork in them, see if crumbs come off on the fork. If crumbs come off, probably need a minute or 2 longer. You want to make sure you set them out once they're done.
Your final step.
This is our final step. We're going to dust them with powdered sugar. Okay?
Use your sifter again.
Yeah, you're using your sifter one last time. And we're just going to go a little bit wild with some powdered sugar. Now, you can do this with other things too. You could top it with chocolate, but I gave you powdered sugar, so use powdered sugar. And then take one and enjoy.